smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is hour number 3, our third and final live right here on this Monday, a special Monday following Selection Sunday, because we are live, in person, in studio together. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. This third hour, all about the 2024 NCAA tournament, both the men's field of 68 and on the women's side as well. So many bracket breakdowns coming your way. For this third hour, our guy, our coach, JY James Young, will be here on the early line as well. A jam-packed third hour, so much madness to dive through.
No, there really is. And the fun part about this, too, is like we're down 2 hours, and it feels like we're just opening the show right now, which is how much fun we've been having, how much information we're giving out there to the public, and a lot more here coming up in hour number 3. I can't wait to break it down. The coach will be here talking to us, and also just to finish this poll out here, because I don't know if I'm going to make a fool out of myself, but I ain't going to sound too smart here, Ben, coming up, so get ready.
I look forward to the poll as well, because I have some further points to bring up in terms of how on track Purdue is to win a national championship in 2024. Third best number for the Boilers at 7-1. But we asked the public, DRS, to end out our second hour. It's how we begin here in our third and final hour on the early line. Which number 1 seed of the 4, that would be UConn, Houston, Purdue, and UNC, is going to exit the NCAA tournament first. And it should be no surprise that many people, and rightfully so, have their questions about the Boilermakers, that Purdue won or lost this poll. 55% of the votes, though, saying Purdue will be the first number 1 seed to exit the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch it play out, and we welcome in the radio audience. And we are live, truly live, Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside in studio right now. Sirius XM Channel 159. We welcome in all of the radio audience listening into this poll here, which is a good one. And by the way, let me just get this started by saying, I filled out my first bracket this morning. Subject to change, we all know that here. But I do think UConn is the best team overall in the tournament. So clicking buttons here through, I say, you know what? UConn's going to cut down the nets. Then I saw this poll come out here at SportsGrid TV. I voted for UConn, 6%. You said, wait, that doesn't even make any sense here. You have UConn winning the championship but getting knocked out first out of these 4 teams that were asked to vote here. Because why? They have the toughest route all the way through. Look, if they get through and win the national championship, this is going to be one of the better runs we've ever seen, if everything stacks up. But we know upsets do happen, and maybe the seed process will work out in UConn's favor, where you say to yourself, oh, this was actually an easy bracket because upsets happened on the way, which allowed them to walk into it. But I'm not one of those people. 6%, I'm one of those 6%ers right here that voted in on UConn here, even though I think they can win it all. Why? Because they do. They're the number 1 overall seed with the toughest bracket, and it's not even close. I don't know how it wound up that way, but that's why UConn got my vote, even though I think they could still cut down the nets here.
Completely agree. UConn should be the favorites entering the NCAA tournament. They are deserving of that number 1 overall seed in this NCAA tournament as well. But I also voted for Connecticut. I think North Carolina makes some sense in an up-in-the-air West region. It could be Arizona to do so by the time they reach the Elite 8. It could be a tougher draw in the round of 32 for a team that has made many headwaves by winning in March. That is Tom Izzo in the Michigan State Spartans. But I also went with UConn because of how difficult the East region is. 11 of the 16 teams that play in the portion of that bracket are a conference tournament title winner throughout the past week or so, including the champions of the Big 12, Iowa State, who some thought could be on the 1 line. Instead, they're not even the top 2. They're with the number 1 overall seed in UConn, the champions of the Big 10 in Illinois, the 3 seed, and the 4 seed Auburn, the champions of the SEC tournament as well. So that's where it stands from the East region. Also, Purdue in the Midwest. I've already have a ticket on the Boilermakers. I've announced that many times on this show. For Purdue to win a national championship. Bet it about a month and a half ago at a 9-1 number. Now Purdue enters with the third best price at plus 700. I have made my small joke that I kind of am starting to believe that 2 1 seeds have been bounced in the history of the NCAA tournament by a 16. Virginia 2018, Purdue last year in 2023. How did UVA respond in 2019? They won a national championship. How is Purdue going to respond in 2024? Well, Well, history would tell us, as it tends to repeat itself, they are going to win a national championship. But over the weekend, some more trends emerged, DRS. Both Virginia in 2019 and Purdue here in 2024 will enter the big dance with exactly 29 wins. Both won the regular season crown in their respective conference. Virginia in the ACC, Purdue in the Big Ten, and both the Cavaliers and the Boilermakers were bounced in the semifinal of their conference tournament before the NCAA tournament. So Purdue, right on track, nothing to worry about.
Look, I'm telling you, like this, the worries for Purdue are round number 1 and round number 2. Once they win those, they should have to be on solid footing ground and move forward. And if I'm laying this out, I even have Purdue taking on Gonzaga there in the in the Sweet 16 game. There's a chance that it could be Sanford, even Kansas. Still like them in that matchup. Then they move forward to have them playing actually Creighton. I think it's a great matchup against Creighton, even if they do play Tennessee at that point, or let's just say a hot run for Oregon at this point.
Yeah.
I like where Purdue's sitting at. And again, the early thought process, they always get knocked out. There's no way. Look, let me tell you something right now. They get knocked out round number 1. And it would be absolutely ridiculous and pie on everybody's face who thought like us, we would be able to trust them to at least move forward and win a couple games. But if we're just being honest, like Purdue should have the run that UConn should have right now. And it's role reversed, which shouldn't happen here, where Purdue's on the lower seeded 1 line than UConn is. No excuses for Purdue this year. You have the best player in the country. Yep. You've been knocked out. You know what's coming in. You have to look forward to. But also, I think your path is good.
Teams like Kansas and Gonzaga, who have been stalwarts of the NCAA tournament, 3 programs around the country have reached the big dance for 20 consecutive seasons or more. Mm-hmm. That's Gonzaga with 25, Michigan State with 26, and Kansas now with 34. We don't believe in the vacation of wins or vacated wins. We don't really do that here. So Kansas has still been to the big dance 34 straight seasons. So KU and Gonzaga right there, I think both have the opportunity to be upset in the round of 64 matchup. Kansas is banged up, only a 7.5-point favorite against Samford. And then you have a Gonzaga team going up against a 30-win McNeese team. Gonzaga just a 6.5-point favorite against the Cowboys. Again, I think there could be some chaos in the upper half of that Midwest region that sets up well for Purdue. And let's not mince words. Purdue's season will be defined by the next 3 weeks in the NCAA tournament. Doesn't matter they won 29 games. Doesn't matter they won their second consecutive Big Ten title outright. Doesn't matter that Zach Edey is more than likely going to win his second straight National Player of the Year award. If Purdue does not reach a Final Four, something the Boilermakers are trying to do for the first time in more than 4 decades since 1980, the season will be considered a failure, and I believe that is fair. But I believe Purdue, this year's team, is the one to change the narrative, and I don't really care that they got bounced in the Big Ten semifinal by Wisconsin. I know you do. I do not. Oregon, by the way, bottom half of this bracket, one of the 5 bid stealers the committee highlighted yesterday. Oregon in the Pac-12, Duquesne in the A-10. You could look around the AAC as well. UAB, NC State in the ACC. Those are 4 of the 5. I know I'm forgetting one, but it will come to me at a certain point. Maybe Mountain West also as well, New Mexico, who they said only got into the big dance because they won the conference tournament despite being 22nd in the very net rankings that the committee uses to make its determinations and select the field of 68. So those are the 1 seeds. That's how it stacks up at the top. Our coach, James Young, JY, joins us next. And for the entirety of this 3rd hour, to look all around the NCAA tournament, we do that next on the early line.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
This
is the Penn State
rule. Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I bought into Tennessee with their veteran team. I really did. But that's, out the window. That ship has sailed today.
A team that wins no games in their conference tournament has never gone on to win the national championship. So you can put Tennessee in that boat. You can put Duke in that boat from last night. You can put Creighton in that boat from last night. They all lost their first conference tournament game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart teams.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if you're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back like we never left. Not only live on this Monday on the early line, Donnie and I have been here for the better part of 2+ hours, but also JY, the Coach James Young, steps into up and in live right here on this Monday following Selection Sunday on the early line. JY, as I looked at the clock just about 10 hours ago, we sat on this very desk for SportsGrid's Bracket Central Selection Sunday special. We went through the bracket region by region, Cinderellas to know, national championship picks, Final Four contenders, and the like. For the next 3 segments here in this third and final hour of the early line, pretty much do the darn same thing.
We're just going to run the 3-man weave a little bit better. And hey, listen, as a coach, we're going to run a little pick and roll. We'll have Donnie rise up out of the corner, drain some threes, and we'll give you guys some bangers and some winners.
Sharpshooter, were you DRS back in your day?
Yeah, 3-point shooter, 2-guard. Yeah, by the way, the 3-minute ball doesn't hit the floor with us.
Like, not at all. It is passing to the nth degree, like the San Antonio Spurs in their heyday. That's why Donnie likes BYU so much in their opening round matchup against Duquesne, because they can shoot the lights out of the ball from beyond the arc. So, JY, let's start with the full tournament bracket overall. Field of 68. As you look at the regions, East, South, Midwest, West, which one stands out to you as the most difficult path to the Final Four?
You know, I was thinking about this a little bit this morning, Ben, and when I came back to it, I think the Midwest is really, really intriguing to me. Because when you look at Purdue as the overall, the 1 seed there, Tennessee, can they get enough stops defensively? And can Dalton Connect carry that team all the way through? You look at a team like Creighton with their three-man weave of Kalkbrenner, Alexander, and Charman. You can't forget about Ashford at the point guard. But then there's other teams you look at. Kansas, is Hunter Dickinson healthy? Is McCullough healthy?
Right.
There could be crazy upsets. We talked about last night, McNeese State, Samford. And then you look at a team like TCU out of the Big 12 that's battle-tested. And then lastly, you have Oregon, who absolutely had a great run. Dana Altman looked like he may not be retiring anytime soon, the way they finish out the year. So I think the Midwest is going to have a lot of craziness and a lot of tight games because you have a lot of teams that really could make a run.
Coach, we have a couple days, I should say, to get ready until the tournament really starts, let's say, on a Thursday. First 4 comes in on Tuesday and Wednesday. I didn't get a chance to ask you this question. If you're looking at the totality of the tournament itself, getting left out and the seed lines themselves, any surprises for you? Because I think you did a great job breaking it down last night. But for the people watching now, give us your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that some things, Donnie, are pretty surprising, to be honest with you. Number one, you got to think about, locally being a New Jersey kid. the Big East. You have 3 teams in the Big East with a team in a 1, 2, and 3 line and no one else. The Mountain West is certainly going to be something that we're going to watch. We had, Mike DeCourcy on last night, Ben and I, and they talked about the seed lines and how the crazy seeding in New Mexico, some of these schools. But so to me, that's going to be something that's going to be pretty interesting is watching that league, because I think that's going to be what is something to watch for is the Mountain West. How do they perform getting more teams in the ACC, getting more teams in the Pac-12, getting more teams in than the Big East? That will be something to watch. Circle that league, and let's see how they do.
Last year, the Mountain West really changed its tournament narrative. They had struggled in March for a good majority of their time as a league. San Diego State put the league on its back, a beacon for the conference into the national championship game, coming up just short against UConn. I say just short. UConn was dominant last year in its run to a national championship. But the Big 12 has 8 teams. Highly regarded this year, JY, as the best league in all of college basketball. The SEC also with 8. The Big 10 has 6. The Mountain West has 6. And the ACC has 5. Let's go to the Big East. They've got UConn, the number 1 overall seed. They've got Marquette, a 2 seed in the South region. And Creighton is a 3 seed in the Midwest. And then outside of that, JY, nobody else. What did you make of the selection Sunday for the Big East Conference?
Well, I think the thing that becomes difficult is you start looking at those 3 teams in Seton Hall, St. John's, and Providence. You say, well, who got shafted the most? Yeah. You can look at the net rating of St. John's being the highest. But then you can look at Seton Hall with 2 wins over St. John's, and then they have the win over UConn. I know that's when Don McQueen got hurt in the second half, and that's when the game kind of turned a little bit. Also have a win versus Marquette at home and a triple overtime loss. And what you can't say enough about what Kim English did this past year with Providence. So to me, the net, Pitino's been upset, Shaheen Holloway's upset. We're going to see what happens moving forward. I think the one thing you have to look at is maybe your strength of schedule and, let's talk about respect. So what you may see, folks, is keep in mind, these 3 teams that made it, they can all make deep runs. Now, obviously, the shooting of the guards of Creighton is going to come into key where they can make a deep run. We got to talk about Tyler Kolek. What can he do? That oblique injury, that's something that's really tricky as a coach to deal with. And then obviously you have the primitive favorite in UConn. One way to shut it up in the Big East, have your 3 teams all make deep runs.
Yeah. What did you make out of this, though, Coach? You take a look at UConn overall, the number 1 seed. And to me, they're the best team overall in the competition. But we just had a poll that we put out on the SportsGrid Network TV account, and it said basically who's going to get knocked out first. I actually voted for UConn, even though it's 6% in dead last. Talk to me about that number 1 overall seed. You're supposed to have the easiest path. That's not the easiest path.
No, it's not an easy path, and I think the 2 things you look at, number 1, you look at the 4 seed in Auburn, right? An Auburn team that's playing really good basketball. Bruce Pearl's kids can play different ways. They can run the ball up the floor. They can play you half court. They can press you. They can zone you. They can do so many different things, and they're freakishly athletic. But then you look at the one that really threw me off, which was Iowa State on the 2 line. Not so much on the 2 line, Donnie, but the 2 line with UConn.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that becomes really difficult because you look at Iowa State. I was joking with Ben last night. I said, well, we call them Houston Light. Maybe Houston needs to be called Iowa State Light. Yeah. With the way that they defend, and TJ's done such a great job. That is a very difficult path, along with the fact that you have 3 of last year's Final Four teams all in the same bracket. It's going to be a tough run for UConn. And listen, it's going to be about Don McClingan. The wing pick and roll is really, really effective with them. Tristan Newton, who I think will be the most outstanding player coming off the pick and roll, and you space them with shooters. But listen, guys, you know how it is. 40 minutes. You got to be better just for 40 minutes.
Right.
We saw that years ago when UNLV thought they were invincible going in, and then Duke got a 40-minute game better. That's all it takes to get knocked out.
When you look at UConn, the favorites to come out of the East region to reach a Final Four in Phoenix, nearing even money, plus 110. The Huskies, the favorites to win a national title entering this year's big dance, to go back-to-back, a 4-1 number on Connecticut, but it will not be easy in that East region. We will go bracket by bracket, region by region on the other side of the break. But, JY, let's talk a little bit of value now. When you look at those national championship odds, where the market has settled. The big 3 have really emerged, and that's where they remain. UConn at 4-1, Houston 6-1, Purdue 7-1. Then you have to double up Purdue's number. By the time you get to Arizona, add on a buck, it's a 15-1 price. Zona actually $1 in front of North Carolina, despite the fact Arizona is the 2 seed in the West and UNC is that top seed in the region. If you were going Arizona and deeper, 15-1 or longer to win a national championship, maybe highlight a team or two. Give us two teams that you have your eye on that can make a deep run in the month of March.
Well, first off, you got to look at Iowa State and what TJ's done. I'll give you a couple more. Iowa State can make a deep run. Folks, Illinois can score the ball. The question is, Brad Underwood, who is a disciple of Huggy Bear, who is a defensive guy, if he could turn that defense up, that is something that you want to watch. And obviously, you got to look at the Marquette factor, right? What do we get out of Tyler Kolek? I think that is going to be a key thing. When you start looking at some of these other teams that don't defend well, Alabama, Kentucky, yes, can they score? The problem then is, can you get the stops? And I think as a coach, I start to lean towards teams that are really good defensively because the game should slow down in March.
When you look at those defensive numbers, by the way, for Illinois, third best offense in the country outside of the top 90 in terms of defensive efficiency, 93. Both Kentucky and Alabama outside of the top 105 in terms of defensive efficiency numbers as well. Maybe profitable for a round or two, but a deep run in the big dance, those metrics don't necessarily stack it up. But then again, we're going to see some points between Alabama and Charleston in their opening round of 64 game. The total is 172.5. It is the highest over-under we have seen in nearly 2 decades in the NCAA tournament. Come back and join us on the other side of the break. Even deeper into the bracket, we dive region by region. East, South, Midwest, West. Next, here on the early line with the coach, Jay Watt.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This
is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I bought into Tennessee with their veteran team. I really did. But that's, out the window. That ship has sailed today.
A team that wins no games in their conference tournament has never gone on to win the national championship. So you can put Tennessee in that boat. You can put Duke in that boat from last night. You can put Creighton in that boat from last night. They all lost their first conference tournament game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart teams.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Region by region, live right here on this Monday following Selection Sunday on the early line. The top overall seed in the 2024 men's NCAA tournament is Connecticut. The UConn Huskies looking to go back-to-back for the first time since 2006 and 07. That's when the Florida Gators, under Billy Donovan, did so. UConn is the favorite to win a national title. They're the top overall seed in the Big Dance, JY. They are also the number one seed, then, of course, in the East region. We have talked about how much of a gauntlet and how difficult this path is to a Final Four. 1 is UConn, 2 Iowa State, 3 is Illinois, 4 is Auburn, 6 is BYU, who, if you actually look at the overall seed list last night, should have been a 5, according to the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. But the Cougars, based on religious affiliation, do not play on Sunday. Thus, they needed to be slotted in a 6th spot for the overall logistics of the Big Dance. So if UConn is going to go back-to-back, it is going to be a difficult path. But where do you make or how do you feel about Dan Hurley's Huskies at this moment, JY, in comparison to how they are playing right now to how they were at the end of last year, winning a national championship?
Well, I think right now they're absolutely rolling. And I think what I've saw, Ben, lately is this wing ball screen. I talked about it last segment with Klingon rolling, and obviously you have Tristan Newton coming off with it, and then you space the floor with Spencer and Cameron shooters, and Castle's kind of stepped up his game. They're playing extremely, extremely well. What is the other big advantage for UConn? Oh, I don't know, folks. They haven't had to go further south than D.C. since, I don't know, the beginning of January to be able to go through the Big East schedule, then go to the Big East tournament at MSG, then go to Barclays, and then end up in Boston. It should be a raucous fan base of UConn that travels really, really well that should be there. So, yes, they have the geographic advantage. They have the player advantage, but you never know, folks. An injury, you don't hit some shots. This is a bracket where you can look at some teams we just talked about, particularly with Auburn, Illinois, and Iowa State. All three of them can make a case that they could knock out UConn if things play in their favor.
Yeah, Coach, we talked about it, opening up the show. We're taking a look at UConn. It's not best of 3, best of 5, best of 7. Give me UConn all day long. They'll win the national championship. You got to win 6 straight games against tough competition on neutral sites. That's hard to do. But teams I want to take a look at, Illinois. The reason I do is I love to handicap these type of situations where you say to yourself, you know the full body of work for UConn. You don't know the full body of work for Illinois because they were without their star player for multiple games there that could shade some of those statistics. Illinois moving forward with a superstar player that played so well in the Big Ten championship. Can you have a player like that go on a run where we can find out Illinois in the Final Four, not UConn?
Donnie, absolutely. Because to me, the biggest thing about it is we're talking about a guard. Mm-hmm. And to me, as much as you want to talk about the Zach Edey's, the Cal Brenners, the Hunter Dickinson, so on and so forth, to me, guard play. And you can get a guy, kind of like Ben and I talked about last year, 1989, folks, Glenn Rice took his team, put it on its back, and they steamrolled all the way to a national championship. They have a proven scorer in Terrence Shannon Jr., who scored over 100 points, right, Ben, I think in 3 games during the Big Ten tournament. This kid can get buckets, and there's other guys on that team can get buckets as well. Like we talked about last segment, the problem with Illinois is, can they get enough stops and play half-court basketball?
93rd in defensive efficiency, 3rd in offense. A Morehead State team, by the way, in the opener, now only an 11.5-point dog, opened as a 13.5-point underdog against the Illini. Illinois trying to get to the second weekend, reach a Sweet 16 in the Big Dance for the first time since 2015. Now we move it over to the South region, where the top team in this portion of the bracket is the Houston Cougars. We talked about it last night. Donnie mentioned it. We've discussed all day long here on the show. Houston got lambasted in the Big 12 tournament title by Iowa State. They are going to come out with a vengeance. We anticipate in the round of 64 matchup against Longwood. They're a 23.5-point favorite. We start with the top, and then we'll work through the South region, seed line by seed line. How do you think the path lays out, JY, for Houston to get back to a Final Four?
Well, here's the thing. First, Longwood, good luck. I mean, that's gonna be a rough scene.
Team total.
Team total under. They may hang this thing at about 45.5. I still may take the under with that. But when you look moving forward, Ben, we talked about this. this could be where, folks, you could see some upsets in the first round. You look at James Madison versus a team like Wisconsin. James Madison, really, really good offensively, can spread you out. Wisconsin, extremely poor points per possession defensively. There's where you can see it. And then you got to look at Duke, Vermont. This is a Vermont team that's not going to be scared at the moment, and they could go and take out Duke, a Duke team that's been wildly inconsistent since the injury, not injury, whatever you want to call it, to Kyle Filipowski.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But either way.
Not injury, by the way.
Not injury, but obviously you can't play the next game. But to me, if you see some upsets there, that could mean a nice little pathway for Houston.
Just wanted to interject quickly. 126.5 is the over-under for the game between Houston and Longwood. Team total for Longwood, 51.
Oh, we're going under. We're going under. What's that first half? It's a single-digit first half possibility.
I don't know. Listen,
hey, what is it? Iowa football there? All right, first half total points for Longwood is 23.
We got to go under. Yeah, we got to go under.
Okay.
That's 17.
Well, the boys have found their best
right
bet for the South region in that 4-game spotlight. DRS, take it away.
My goodness. And by the way, Coach, we do talk about teams, and again, I just brought up Illinois, where maybe you have your star player for a couple games, comes back, now he's on fire. We have a similar situation here with Marquette. Tyler Kolek healthy and Tyler Kolek not healthy, completely different situations for Marquette. Now, we don't get privy to that news of exactly what's happening, but he was asking a coach, we make a deep run in this conference tournament, I want to play, and he was asking to play here. Now, it turns out he didn't play, and for the greater good of the team, probably rightfully so. How do you handle Marquette in this tournament, specifically in the South bracket?
You know, here's the crazy thing, and Shaka Smart played the long game, and I think he played it perfectly because if he looked at it, he probably said, even if we do win the Big East tournament, we're not going to get to the one line. So I think he knew his spot was kind of secure. So he just said, you know what, let's play the long game and get you ready for the tournament. So to me, what becomes interesting with them is if Tyler Kolek is healthy, can this team make a run to the Final Four? Absolutely. If he isn't, folks, you can start looking at them and saying, where can they get picked off? I think this Boise State, Colorado is going to be interesting versus Florida. Another contrast of styles. Florida, another team who I'm worried about. Why? They don't get stopped. If you watched the game yesterday against Auburn, right? They just wanted to just run. They couldn't get stops. To me, they look acceptable. So you can look at one of these teams in that 10 line who may be able to get past Marquette if Tyler Kolek is healthy. But that also leads to another team that doesn't play a lot of defense, and that's Kentucky.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, folks, and this is why I think Kentucky could be the outlier here with the teams that don't play defense. They got guys who can score, and they got 6 of them. They're all guards, and Cal can basically play them all evenly in their minutes in the first, let's say, 35 minutes of the game, and look at them and say, okay, who's taking me home? Who's the best at all of them. So that's why Kentucky is intriguing with the Kolek injury as well.
Boise State, 2.5-point dog in the first 4 matchup in Dayton on Wednesday night against Colorado. I'm having a tough time selecting who I think is going to win. I think I'm leaning to the Broncos, despite Colorado getting hot at the end of the Pac-12 season, of course, falling short in that tournament title game. If Boise State wins, I might look at the Broncos making it 2 wins in the big dance, even against Florida. Midwest region, the top overall seed is the Purdue Boilermakers. And, of course, JY, that's where we start in the Midwest. We'll get to the other teams and their outlook, but with the Boilers season defined by this NCAA tournament, by what they can do in these next 3 weeks, hopefully reaching a Final Four in Phoenix, anything short might be deemed a failure this year. Is this the Boilermakers team, with how it is constructed outside of the big man in Zach Edey, that you think can change the narrative?
Well, here's the thing, folks. One thing I like about the Purdue team, let's be honest, the guards are a year old. And I think that is the key thing. I think the moment just got a little bit too big. And you got to realize, folks, when you're a heavy favorite and you're a 1 seed or a 2 seed or a 3 seed and you're a big favorite, the game starts to get a little tight if you're not blowing a team out early.
Yeah.
So what do I think what's going to happen after last year? Oh, Purdue is going to beat the snot out of whoever they play in the first round because they don't want to leave any doubt in their mind.
Yeah.
But to me, and we talked about it, Ben, last night, how great Zach Edey is, right? But to me, it's more about the other guys. It's about Smith, who got banged up a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. It's Jones. It's Gillis. These guys have to knock down shots. A lot of them guys, remember, are shooting 40% from 3. If they could knock down shots, that dribble handoff, that high ball screen with the roll down the middle by Zach Edey, way more effective. They got to hit shots.
Let me double down on this with Purdue, because here's the question that I'm trying to get it wrapped around. Because Ben and I have been talking about for a couple weeks. Forget about last year. We trust them. That doesn't mean you'd cut down the nets. It just means we're going to get an honest effort. And I don't think they're going to get tripped up here in, let's just say, the round of 32 or even, not making it to the Sweet 16. But if you are Purdue, can you catch lightning in a bottle, which means, like, okay, we win round number 1. That's good. We win round number 2. Let's just say it's against TCU. And then they say, you know what? We got past all our demons. Now it's time to make a run in the national championship. Like, can you look at them even more appreciative if they get through those first 2 rounds and then make a wager in that Sweet 16 and go, you know what, Purdue's getting there?
It's about, to me, even though they got lost in the round of 64, it's that round of 32 matchup between Utah State and TCU. 2 teams that are very capable that could pick them off. If they go out and they get the job done in that matchup, then you could see them steamrolling maybe all the way to the Final Four.
TCU a 2.5-point favorite despite being the 9 seed in that opening round of 64 game in the Midwest region. Winner of that more than likely will take on Purdue. They await the winner of Montana State in Grambling in the first 4 in Dayton. Listen, we've got too much bracket to do. We've got too much March Madness to dive through. We'll get to some NBA picks in the second half of our next segment up together. We'll fire through. You'll have some picks in plays before we get to the first 4 in Dayton on Tuesday. But we've got one more region, that being the West region, to dive through here in the 2024 men's NCAA tournament with our coach, James Young, JY. And then we'll get some thoughts on the women's tournament as well. An intriguing bracket. If Caitlin Clark and Iowa are going to get to the Final Four, what a gauntlet they have to get to. Can we see some teams like Stanford and UConn, who are not the 1 seeds in their portion of the bracket, get to a Final Four? And can South Carolina stay undefeated? They're a perfect 32-0 entering the big dance. All of that and more with some NBA handicaps coming your way up next.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I bought into Tennessee with their veteran team. I really did. But that's, out the window. That ship has sailed today.
A team that wins no games in their conference tournament has never gone on to win the national championship. So you can put Tennessee in that boat. You can put Duke in that boat from last night. You can put Creighton in that boat from last night. They all lost their first conference tournament game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart teams.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if you're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The bracket breakdowns continue here on this Monday following Selection Sunday. And you might be thinking, oh, we have all days off until the round of 64, Thursday and Friday. You're wrong. First four action in Dayton, Ohio, tomorrow night and on Wednesday. The big dance is about to be here, so get your dancing shoes ready. We continue to go around the NCAA tournament and the field of 68 in the men's side of things, and we'll look at the women's bracket as well. JY, we hit the East region with the top overall seed in UConn and the reigning national champs. Then to the South, where the top team is Houston, down into the Midwest in Purdue. Before we move on to the West region, if Purdue is ultimately going to be knocked off and not emerge out of the Midwest into the Final Four, which teams on the bottom half of the bracket do you think give the Boilers the best run for their money?
I think one particular, it's Creighton. And the reason why is because they have a big. Now, listen, Ryan Kalkbrenner is a different big than Zach Edey. He's not a big, bruising big, but the three-time defending Big East Defensive Player of the Year is long, and he blocks a ton of shots and alters shots. So that could affect a team like Purdue offensively because maybe you're not going to get the double teams coming at. They may play it a little bit more one-on-one with Kalkbrenner to see if he can handle it. So to me, that becomes an interesting thing, and they have the guard play that can knock down shots. So if there's a team on the bottom of that bracket in the Midwest, to me, it's the Creighton Blue Jays.
Let me ask you a quick question before we move over to the West. Kansas, cooked? Just simple. Like, what do we expect out of the Kansas here? Nothing?
Well,
First-round exit?
Well, listen, it's about, are these two kids going to play? Like, are we going to get McCullough or are we going to get Dickinson? Because, you know, I tried this last night with Ben. He didn't get it for a couple of years. I'm looking at Sanford. So I think Sanford.
That's your age bracket. You guys got it.
with their ability to shoot the ball offensively,
big dummy.
A Kansas team that really, without those two guys, they look like, honestly, guys, they look like an NIT team without the two of them.
Terrible performance.
So to me, if they can't get these two guys healthy and rolling through, that is an upset special. And don't sleep on McNeese State in that 5-12 game either.
Right. Samford, one of the fastest tempos in the country, 14th fastest. They have the guns to play with Kansas. Also, one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country, 8th best, 39.3% from beyond the arc. Now we get to the West region. North Carolina, the 1 seed out west. Arizona is the 2 seed. We have said this a few times on the show. The Wildcats actually have better odds at plus 260 than UNC, the 1 seed in this region, to reach the Final Four, plus 350 for North Carolina. Let's start there. JY, do you agree with the odds? Do you think Arizona's path through the West is more favorable than that of North Carolina?
You know what? To me, it's about the fact that Alabama's in that top half of the draw. They struggle defensively.
Yeah.
I think that is where you're looking at that. And then you're looking at some matchups. There could be some upsets there, particularly with Grand Canyon versus St. Mary's in that first round. But to me, the bottom half is so wild, right? Because, you know, you look at Arizona, and I talked about this last night. Caleb Love, see me? See what this is? That's a pass. You have a monster named Omar Ballo who shoots 65% from the floor and took 5 shots in the game you lost to Oregon. Feed the big man. You feed the big man, you go farther in the tournament.
Taking a look here at North Carolina, myself, and Arizona. I don't like the Pac-12. I don't like the ACC depth-wise moving forward. But if we're looking at this overall bracket, I do like the pathways for both of them. So I want to take a look at a game early on that possibly could be a matchup in the round of 32, Coach. It's North Carolina and it's Michigan State. Are we going to catch lightning in a bottle with Michigan State as one of those teams where we didn't know if they would be in just a couple weeks ago? They make it in. They're on a seed line that now sits where they say, you know what? If we knock off Carolina, we might be looking at a team like St. Mary's or Alabama who we can handle and find themselves in the Elite Eight. Talk to us about Michigan State and Tom Izzo's squad here.
Well, let's be honest. Which Sparty team shows up?
It's true.
I mean, let's be honest. When they struggle to shoot from three, I mean, it is a struggle bus. And not just the to play, but the coach and especially to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, if they can knock down shots, it's Izzo. And you know what it is. January, February, Izzo, April. This is the time of year that Tom Izzo is really good. And here's why I think this could be an upset. Tom Izzo on a one-day prep.
Yeah.
That is the issue. To me, you have a better chance of with Michigan State. It's either going to be they get knocked out first round or they're going to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Because after they get through the first one, they almost can get through the second one because you don't have enough time to prepare for Tom Izzo.
It is going to be fascinating, the top of that bracket. If North Carolina can get through Michigan State, and oh, by the way, the Spartans in an MSU all battle against Mississippi State, just a 1.5 favorite. Then the path lightens up for North Carolina with some potential upsets, although Donnie likes the Gales over Grand Canyon.
SMC,
Many
baby.
people looking at the Lobos in the 12-5 upset. St. Mary's a 5.5-point favorite. We said this last night on the show. I picked in my early Final Four out of the West, New Mexico, the champions of the Mountain West, a 25-win team, 22nd in the net. They won the Mountain West Conference Tournament title, and I think are highly underseeded as an 11 seed. 13-1 for the Lobos to win the West region. A long shot, but maybe worth a sprinkle. Now let's get into the women's NCAA tournament in 2024. South Carolina at this point already, JY, after a perfect run in the regular season, an SEC tournament title as well, is undefeated, 32-0, entering the big dance, and they're a minus money favorite. Do you agree that the price is justified? And even if so, who would you look at behind the Gamecocks? Because everybody else is pretty hefty plus money.
Well, first things first, I don't know if they're going to get there. I'll be honest with you, because there is a kid in Donnie's neck of the woods in South Jersey out of Haddonfield named Hannah Hidalgo. You don't know her? Go check her out. Leads the nation in steals, top 20 in assists, top 5 in points per game, and she's about this big, about 5'6", and she can rebound. So Hannah Hidalgo, who put her team on her back and took them to the championship in league, they could be a threat. But when you look at a lot of other places, folks, listen, you talk about like they took care of Izzo in the men's tournament. No one took care of better than our guy Gino Auriemma.
Yeah.
The fact that they are in that region with Juju Watkins, another freshman, is outstanding. They almost, to me, I'm not saying they gave a cakewalk path for UConn, but they definitely gave them a path to the Final Four.
So, by the way, in this bracket itself, and sometimes I joke, and sometimes I'm really not joking. Like, moving forward with the women's...
I don't think you're joking.
Yeah, I'm really not actually joking at this point. Why aren't we made for TV here? What are we doing putting Iowa in the same bracket here as LSU? I mean, the Final Four of the women's... Now, granted, this is a stretch. It's not going to match up even if you do get that dream Final Four in women's college basketball to the men's Final Four. We can talk about bringing eyeballs into the tent and the growth of the women's game. Having those superstars in the Final Four would go so long. Why didn't they think about that? And again, I know it's about the competitive advantage. The teams are where they are. But why did they think about this, Coach? Like, why didn't we have the regions, as you said, look at you around UConn, Iowa, and let's just say LSU and South Carolina as the number 1 overall seeds. In each region, they all meet up in the Final Four. It would have been bonkers numbers here.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at, particularly the Region 4 in Portland, with Vic Schaefer, who was the longtime coach at LSU, then heading over to Texas and doing a great job.
Yeah.
They kind of rewarded Vic for what he has done. But you're absolutely right. Here's the thing. The women's tournament, folks, is so much, to me, about ratings.
Yes.
You remember back in the day when Duke was really good and they used to get like that 12 p.m. Saturday slot like almost every year because they wanted them to be there. Folks, this is the Caitlin Clark show, and I think they missed the boat. I think it would have been nice. I'm not saying you give her the easiest pathway to the Final Four, but either way, it's going to be really impressive coming out of that bracket because of the fire, the star power of all these teams.
How about an Elite 8 game between Iowa and LSU? You still have to reward based on resume. And Texas, the champions of the Big 12, which was a strong league this year. USC in a gauntlet of the Pac-12 led by Juju Watkins, who is the next biggest star in college basketball. The champions there and deserving of that one line. But you look at the national title prices and you see a 25-1 UCLA team, plus 750 for LSU, and Iowa at 7-1. Those are the top 3 seeds in Albany Region 2, which is the Hawkeyes region. I still love our national championship board, by the way. It's not even Caitlin Clark representing Iowa. Kate Martin. Let's put up Kate Martin one more time. There you go, Kate. There you go, Kate.
It's a Kate.
Get in there.
Does it matter?
What?
As long as it's a Kate.
But
you know
she's
what I mean?
Kate. Caitlin Clark is Caitlinn. And by the way, the ratings because of Caitlin Clark in women's college basketball this year setting historic marks pretty much on a weekly basis throughout this season. Now we'll give you some NBA handicappers. And welcome to the desk where the 2 premier NBA handicappers on this network sit. That would be myself and Donnie Rightside. Happy to have the coach's expertise as well. A central focus in Indianapolis tonight between the Pacers and the Cavaliers. 7-point number in favor of Indiana, and the over-under, only 226.5, JY, for a team in the Pacers that loves to play with pace.
Yeah, and I think it's about the pace of play. And I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a team in Cleveland that's going to have to slow this game down.
Yeah.
They have no way of winning this game if this game gets exploded and starts to go up and down. I still like the Pacers minus supports because, folks, when I look at this, I'm so locked into when you look at particularly the East, from seeds 4 to 8.
Yeah.
With 27 to 30 losses, this becomes a huge game for Indiana. I think it means more to them than Cleveland. I do like Indiana minus the points.
Let's go quickly to Philadelphia. The Miami Heat, Philadelphia 76ers. If I'm looking at a lot, look, there's no trap lines technically here because they're not picking teams out of a hat. Like, let's trick the public. The Sixers are a favorite over against the Heat, minus 2.5 with a total of 209.5. Is this strictly based on a back-to-back night here? Because what I'm looking at from the Sixers is, Maxi's back, but also Butler looks like he could be back in the lineup tonight for the Miami Heat. How are the Sixers favored over the Heat tonight?
It's probably the back-to-back. But to me, when you look at this matchup tonight, this is a Miami Heat team that, if they get Jimmy Butler back, they should be the better team here because a Philadelphia team that's literally just trying to limp their way into the playoffs or to when JoJo gets back. And I think this is a big spot here because if you look at just the standings, just today, if Cleveland were to go ahead and beat Indiana, that team that wins moves into the 6th spot. I know Donnie has this feeling about resting guys.
Yes.
Not me. I need to be in that top 6 because now it's not a best out of 5 or best out of 7 like it is in the NBA or best out of 7 now all the time in the NBA playoffs. It's one game or it's 2 bad games and you're out. I think getting to that 6th seed means so much more in the NBA than people think.
Total at 209 for that matchup. Philadelphia under in 5 straight. The Sixers were a double-digit favorite against Charlotte. They covered. They're a short favorite tonight against Miami, but in 13 of 19 previous, an underdog, just 5-8 both straight up and against the spread. Now we go out to San Francisco. The Warriors playing host tonight to the New York Knicks. 5.5-point number in favor of Golden State. Total at 211 and a hook. JY, what's the breakdown for this matchup between the Dubs and the Knickerbockers?
Well, if you look at the game that the Golden State won 110-99 a couple of weeks ago, the Knicks team was banged up. Obviously, Jalen Brunson had just got back from injury. But to me, the Knicks, as much as you talk about missing Julius Randle or missing Mitchell Robinson, it's amazing what OG Anunoby has meant to this team. Defensively and stretching the floor as a stretch 4. I think the Knicks are so much better 2-on-1 against the spread. Since OG's been back, I like the Knicks plus the points in a really good game versus Golden State.
When you look at New York with OG Anunoby in the lineup, they have been sensational covering numbers, as you said, JY. Not only are they 2-1 against the numbers since he's been back, 3-0 straight up, 15-2 with OG Anunoby in the lineup. I believe we have one more NBA game. We got 2 more. All right, Lakers-Hawks, second leg of a back-to-back for Atlanta in L.A. They pulled off an upset last night over the Clippers, and Boston and Detroit. The Pistons have covered in 5 of the last 7. We got 20 seconds, JY. Give us a pick from one of these 2 games.
Take the 2 favorites, Lakers, and it's a lot of points for the Celtics. 16's a ton. Maybe take the Celtics.
AD back? AD back tonight? Poked in the eye?
I don't know. The guy may be hurt for another 3 weeks.
53-14 Boston, 30-3 at home inside TD Garden. JY, thank you. A best bet next.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance.
That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that lightning in a bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I bought into Tennessee with their veteran team. I really did. But that's, out the window. That ship has sailed today.
A team that wins no games in their conference tournament has never gone on to win the national championship. So you can put Tennessee in that boat. You can put Duke in that boat from last night. You can put Creighton in that boat from last night. They all lost their first conference tournament game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart teams.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live. Prime time.
Back-to-back just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live. Overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this special edition. It's a Monday on the early line. I'm almost sad.
Yeah.
We're rounding out our 3 hours together. It flies by when you're live in studio, in person together. He is Donnie Right Side. I am Ben Stevens. But before we go, I knew it was that camera. I knew I'd get myself once. It's that camera, Ben, as we round out our 3 hours together. He is DRS. I am BSS. That is Ben Stevens. This is a best bet. Before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time for bye, bye, bye. And now we go back to that one. Post-show report. It will make its way on there, I am sure. So, DRS, this is Monday. It's the only day this week without an NCAA tournament game starting tomorrow, the first 4 in Dayton, Ohio. I can make the pledge now. This will be my only non-college basketball best bet of the week here on the SportsGrid Network. Can you say the same?
I can say the same because even though Major League Baseball season is opening, you can't give a best bet out at 5:30 a.m. The people aren't even in the room yet.
Game time decisions.
That's true.
They might be live in the studio.
Point right here.
Right here.
Yep.
Right here. Game time decisions Wednesday for the Dodgers and the Padres. Opening in Seoul, South Korea. We give you a best bet on this Monday. A lot of action around the association. Home stretch in the NBA. What gets your attention?
Late night, 10:40 p.m. tonight. It's going to be the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Los Angeles Lakers. We just told you that the Atlanta Hawks had a great performance last night in a defensive effort, holding the team to 93 points. That ain't happening again tonight, but I'm actually going to focus on LeBron James and take his total over 26.5 points. Dropped 4 the last time out. Who knows if AD's playing tonight? Give me LeBron James points total to the over.
The Hawks won outright last night as an underdog, but still 23-44 against the spread. The worst cover team in the NBA this season. I'm also going in the NBA. Give me a total to the under. 211.5 is the number between Golden State and the New York Knicks. Now, the Warriors are 15-7 since the start of February. In 13 of those 15 wins, Golden State has stayed under a number. All New York does is go under. The Knicks have played 28 games in the calendar year of 2024. 22 of the 28 have stayed under 211.5 tonight in San Francisco between the Warriors and the Knicks. I'm going to miss you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to be back virtual, but we'll be here 8 a.m. Eastern on a Tuesday on the early line.